Ghost quitting, the new buzzword in workplace vocabulary today, like the Great Reshuffle, the Great Resignation. It's a way of describing, well, things that are changing within the workplace today, things that are dramatically different, the new norm. Yeah, ghost quitting is, if you're managing a team or if you're leading a team, your HR department's going to probably make you sit through a session or a webinar or read a memo on ghost quitting, what to do about it, how to detect it, what are the signs of ghost quitting, and how to avoid it or get over it.
Yes, you are upset.
Yeah,
Say it.
I'm upset.
Say it so the whole band can hear you.
I'm upset.
Louder!
I'm upset.
Louder!
I'm upset.
So let's take a quick look at ghost quitting and what it means for you and what you can do about it, maybe even what you can do to avoid it. Hi, I'm James Callahan, and this is the Do-Over Show, where we realize that maybe that job is no longer as fulfilling as you thought it would be or could be. And you've lost your love for it and you decide, I want to move on, I want a do-over. Well, ghost quitting is the halfway measure that we're facing today in this new norm of pandemic life where we say, yeah, this isn't just what I thought it would be.
Mr. Harkin, can I speak to you?
Yeah, sure, what is it?
You know, for months you've been hinting that I was in line for that promotion.
And look how hard you've been working.
What, were you just lying to me?
Lying? No, Nick. Motivating.
It's the realization that we might not love our job, or maybe we should be doing something else. And that means we kind of give up on doing what it is we're doing now for work.
You know that last month you made me work so late I missed saying goodbye to my gam.
I'm sorry, what?
My grandmother. I told you that I needed to see her because she was very, very sick. You said if I left early I'd get fired. And she died before I made it to the hospital.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I had no idea that you called your grandmother.
Some are calling ghost quitting the new form of burnout within the workplace, where we struggled through the pandemic, we made it work, and yet we weren't feeling the reward. And then the economy and inflation took off and left all of us behind, and we didn't see an upside into doing more and more and more work constantly. And since the term ghost quitting is new, we really don't know what to make of it. It's meant to capture something, a loss of meaning or frustration that has grown in us, where we've decided that maybe there is a loss to this work-life balance. It's the idea that our life has lost in the work-life balance, and that work-life balance was always just a charade or charade. Which one do you say? Either way, you don't have one, a life that is, and that's the problem. For a long time now, we've used this phrase work-life balance, and companies advertise that they believe in work-life balance, like they believe in the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus or pizza parties. Yeah, for most of us, work-life balance has always been sort of an illusion, something that's never been realized. We're not really sure what it's supposed to look like, what it's supposed to feel like for us. And when we put all of our energy into work, and life, we find ourselves overextended, not in one area, but in two, work and life. Now, the basics of work-life balance were that we're supposed to have clear lines demarcating work from life, from leisure, from experiences. That we're not only supposed to do our 9 to 5 or whatever our job is, but we're also supposed to invest significantly in that, just as seriously and as deeply committed to work as we would be to our life. But the energy we spend in one tends to take away from the other, and that's where the loss happens. That's where few of us, except constant overachievers, can ever get close to this false idea of work-life balance. I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but when you show up at work on a Monday morning after a life-filled weekend, you almost need a recovery day, and Monday at work becomes a recovery day. Or vacation. You get back from a vacation more tired and worn out than you were when the vacation started, and somehow that's supposed to be recharging your batteries? And for some of you, you're saying, vacation? What's a vacation? Now, the basics of this investment in work and life are that we're supposed to derive some sense of self-esteem or worth or value to ourselves because of our investment of our time and our energy doing work or doing life. And when we work, because it's so closely tied to our self-esteem, that means that everything else in our life has to be rearranged. Family, life, friends, relationships, everything gets rearranged. Our health, our sleep, all get justified based on the self-esteem that we derive from our performance and our recognition or reward, whether it's with promotions up constantly or with an increase in pay. And when we tie our self-esteem to that idea of work, life itself simply falls in line.
Maybe it's time to quit.
I love my job.
You hate your job.
I love my job.
You're miserable.
I love my job.
So what do we do when the reality hits us that there is no such thing as true work-life balance without some significant rearranging of both work and life? Well, this is where ghost quitting comes in. This is where ghost quitting becomes a reality. And I need to give credit here to a man named Jack Kelly, a contributor to Forbes magazine who shared articles in his LinkedIn profile. I'll link to his profile down in the description below. And Jack Kelly has done some really strong work in bringing this to light, this idea of ghost quitting or ghost coasting, which we'll see in a moment. So right away, you probably get the idea that anything with the word quitting in it isn't a good thing. And that's right. Most people that write about it, even our friend Jack, look at ghost quitting as something that's a problem to be solved, or at least to be aware of. And if you're understaffed, if you have a team, if you're looking to hire, you know that ghost quitting is not only a lower productivity experience, but it's also something that it's almost impossible to overcome because you advertise for job openings and you don't get the candidates you want, or the quality of candidates that you want, or the people willing to do the quality of work and productivity that you expect to be able to do. And to complicate this even more, we've accepted the idea that in the Great Resignation, when people leave, which they are leaving, that we make people who stay do their work and the work of those who have left as well without a significant increase in compensation. And then in turn we lose those people because we've asked more of them without the kind of reward or compensation that they need in order to feel valued in their work. So the basics of ghost quitting look like this. People do just enough to get by. They only do the things that are required, not the extra steps or making things happen that don't exist yet. Initiative, motivation, no, not necessarily part of that. Now it does involve showing up at 9 and leaving at 5 and calling that work and never letting it interfere with from 5 to 9. But it also means this. It also means avoiding Jack Ma of Alibaba's fame, 996, where you work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week, and that becomes the norm. No, that's not the norm. There is a resistance to this idea of 996, and in fact they become those that are called laying flat. Or lying flat. Lying flat. Lying flat is a term used for a protest movement in China's disengaging labor market today, moving away from work is life culture to a labor market that embraces the reality that there's got to be more than 9 to 9 and 6 days a week. Now there is within any workplace culture a really extreme form of ghost quitting, which is not only do you do the minimum, but you don't even do that. You do just enough not to get fired. And that means instead of showing up at 9, you show up at 9:15. You take longer lunches. You spend a half hour in the bathroom multiple times a day. And you leave a few minutes before 5. And only in those situations where something dramatic happens do you ever do anything more than the bare minimum of what's required. And this worse than worse version is sometimes called ghost coasting. That is, you coast along just barely surviving.
Hello, Peter. What's happening? We have sort of a problem here. Yeah, you apparently didn't put one of the new cover sheets on your TPS reports.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that. I forgot.
Yeah.
Ghost coasting means going along for the ride and collecting a paycheck. You know that time between paychecks? That's called life. Well, for most of us, it's just the time where we have to struggle to get to the next paycheck, and it's the things we do just to get us to the next paycheck. Ghost coasting means we've given up on the idea of getting ahead or upward mobility through our job. We've given up on the motto of up or out as a way of dealing with work-life culture. And the reason why ghost coasting is even possible is because, well, we're in a strong labor market. Record low unemployment, 2 openings for every person looking for a job today. And if you've been searching for good quality people for your business or organization, you know it's a struggle. Why? Because it's their market. In your lifetime, it's never been a labor market that's in favor of the worker. Today, we've got that market, and most employers and organizations have no idea what to do about it, or how to hang on to good people, how to encourage good people to continue to do good work. And that's where ghost coasting is not just a labor problem, it's a you problem. Ghost coasters don't quit to find another job because they don't have to, or the stress of finding another job is just too much work. And why would they bother looking if you're so panicked about retaining workers in the first place? A recent Gallup global poll of labor productivity and survey put it this way: Only 1/3 of the global workforce is considered engaged by measuring productivity. And almost 1 in 5 in today's labor market throughout the world, they portray themselves as disengaged. There's even a new anti-work movement. And you can read about it in an anti-work subreddit with the motto, "Unemployment for All." And that's with 2 million plus members, known as idlers. They have the mission statement for those who want to end work and get the most out of a work-free life. Just don't let anyone in HR know you're part of that group. It seems like some utopian fantasy, this anti-work movement, but it's really just the extreme measure of what the ghost quitting or ghost coaching culture involves today. And that is, there is a failure to value the work of work-life balance. There's a failure on the part of companies and organizations to know what's of value to those who work, to their team members. Some of the key tenets of this anti-work movement are things like, well, lousy bosses are a big problem. They always are. Bosses who micromanage, demand overtime without compensation, which is illegal in most states, but still people do it routinely. Or they threaten to withhold good performance reviews, and they use meets expectations as a baseline or a default. That means even when you do overachieve, you receive a meets expectations on your evaluation. And the 1 or 2% raise that accompanies meets expectations. It becomes the new default. Why? Well, because we don't want to give people an exceeds expectations, because then they'll expect too much in terms of compensation or work-related benefits. And there's no better way of turning a high productivity employee into a ghost coaster than to treat them with a meets expectations default. And no, it's not enough for the HR department to say, "I expect awesomeness from you," because all that will do is reinforce the idea that there is no value in exerting yourself, in taking initiative, or of exceeding expectations. Even if you do, you're told you simply meet them. So what can we do about ghost quitting? Well, if you're feeling it as someone who is working, then congratulations. You've timed the market perfectly, the thing people say you couldn't do. You're feeling it at a time when those feelings will not necessarily hurt you. In fact, it gives you time to work on it because of the tight labor market, the strong labor market today. If you're feeling the pressure associated with ghost quitting and you find yourself just doing the minimum and excusing it because they're not going to look or they're not going to fire you for this and you can get away with it for a while, well, think of it this way. You've got some runway. You've got some time to work through this, to openly address these things. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't want to talk about it with my employer, with my boss, with my direct report, because that'll make it obvious, and it's better just to ignore it. Yes, that passive aggressiveness is ordinary workplace behavior. But take it upon yourself to think, okay, what if I did do this? What value does it derive for me and for the organization? Maybe you use this time not to benefit yourself at your current role, but to build your resume for your next role. Because the greater increases in compensation over your work life come from moving from one company to another company, not from staying in the same company for 20 or 30 years. You will make 20 to 30% less than the person who moves a job every 2 to 3 years. That's the reality, and it has been for a long time. Employers don't tell us that because, well, they don't want to pay us more. But this is your opportunity. If you're feeling that pressure of just doing enough to get by and of hiding at work, well, this is your chance to think, okay, what do I really want from my work? What do I really want to invest in myself? This is the time when it becomes about you. Now, there's the other looming threat, and that is with discussions of inflation and recession on the horizon. One of the consequences of most recessions is that there are things called layoffs, and companies, because they're not exceeding expectations, will begin to lay off people that they consider non-essential. Non-essential is ghost coasters. So that means that you got a chance in this labor market before it actually hits you and you have to do something about it. And one of the ways of dealing with the threat of recession and layoffs is to make yourself more valuable in your work. It doesn't mean just to do more of everything. It means to be able to do things that are critical to the function of your business, that are considered essential, that'll keep you in your role even while other people are let go, when their jobs are redundant, but yours is not, because you've added those special things that your company, your organization needs, and they don't want to pay anybody else to do them, that you are worth keeping. Find those things, invest yourself in those things, and you become more valuable within your organization, even in the face of an economic downturn. So until the labor market actually feels the pressure of significant layoffs and you are forced as an employer to start to let people go that are just not contributing to the value, the bottom line of your organization or business, well, they're not feeling the pressure until that happens, but you are, because you know that your work productivity is based on how well they do their work. And you're feeling the pressure because that slowdown, that can be part of your responsibility as an employer. So if you're an employer, you are feeling it, even if those who work for you are not. And realize this, more pizza parties are not going to be the answer to this. And demanding more work of people, threatening them with a slowing economy and with recession and with the problems that it might lead to layoffs, those kind of threats, that only builds distrust among those who are on your teams. And don't do this. One employer actually posted time limits on the restroom doors calling for a 5-minute limit on restroom visits. No, don't be that boss. So what do you do instead? Well, you invest in your employees with some transparency. You can do things like stay interviews rather than exit interviews. That is, while people are with you, take the initiative, separate them completely from yearly reviews in which compensation is expected, and have those honest conversations about what is of value to your workers. I've done a video on this, and you can check that out here. And here's the big one. Realize that not everybody wants to continually move up, assume more responsibility, become managers, take over leadership. Some people just want to show up and do their work and do a good job and get their paychecks and go home to their families. And getting over the up or out philosophy may be the most important step you take in facing this ghost quitting phenomena. And that means having conversations that try to discover what's of value to your team members. What's of value to them? What are they looking for? What would they like to see as an investment in their professional and personal development that will help them? And that means that the boss works for the employee. Yep, the boss works for the employee. The employee does work for the boss, but the boss works for the employee. That should be written down somewhere. That should be hanging on your wall. And that means that the power dynamic of today's workplace has changed dramatically since the time when people worked for the same company for their entire life, changed dramatically since the time of higher unemployment when people were desperate for jobs and would take jobs even well beneath their qualifications level. That means that today, with this changing power dynamic in the workplace, that it's on you as someone who is an employer to make something better happen for those you want to work with you. And thanks for being part of the Do-Over Show. Please, could you tap the like button because it really helps? And while you're down there, would you consider subscribing and ringing the notifications bell so you don't miss the next episode? I'm so glad you found me and I found you. Thanks.